What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Peer Pleasure with Dewey Halpus on Equal Vision Records and Sound Talent Media. I am Dewey, your host with the most, bringing you more great content week after week. This week, guys, is an amazing episode. I was so stoked to get this one done. It was a blast. We did about 2 hours, and it was a lot of fun. Mr. Spencer Chamberlain from Under Oath joins the program today. I know a lot of you guys have been asking to get him on. I have also been trying to get him on, but I was barking up the wrong tree, I think. So thanks to Matt Carter for hooking us together. From Emory, you guys know Matt. He's been on the show before. And yeah, he hooked us together. Spencer had already heard the podcast through Jeff from Code 7 and was familiar with the old band Anatomy of a Ghost, which I was in. So that helped out too, to connect us together and have us on some common ground. And yeah, what an awesome connection that was. And really appreciate Spencer coming on the show. And yeah, it was great. We had a lot of fun. So anyways, Under Oath has been, I mean, everything's crazy right now. But I know, Under Oath was gone for a while, came back, put out Erase Me, which was a badass record. They were nominated for a Grammy, all kinds of crazy stuff. Spencer's living in Asheville, North Carolina now, and change of scene, and change of a lot of things. So we go into all sorts of stuff on this episode. There's some really good stuff on here. I literally, was just talking to someone the other day about how much I love this episode, which isn't out yet. So it is out now for you guys to enjoy. And thank you so much for coming back week after week. I know things have been crazy, but you know what? We're going to get through it. We do just one day at a time, just like with everything, like with Spencer and I, one day at a time, we get through it. And I mean, you take things in small steps like that, you can get through it. And so again, guys, thank you so much for all your continued support, for buying merch, telling people about the show. I've gotten a ton of messages this week about people discovering the show through a friend of theirs, or when I see someone tag the show with just a bunch of their friends that they think would like the episode when it comes out. That stuff's huge. I mean, if you do that on, all the episodes that you guys like, I mean, if a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to talk to so-and-so? I'd be absolutely, right? Because it's different than when a publicist sends you something that they sent to 100 other people and want you to jump on it. If you hear it from a friend or someone you trust and know, and that's not to say if I get an email from a publicist that I know and trust, I'm not going to respond. But it's coming from a friend to a friend, it means a lot more. So thank you to you guys who have been doing that. The show has grown exponentially. I think we've pretty much doubled in size, maybe tripled in size since in the last year. It's just growing like crazy. So thank you so much for that. Let's get some business out of the way and we'll jump in. I don't want to make this super long, but I'm just super excited about this episode. So peerpleasurepodcast.com is the website. If you want to show a friend the show, every show's on there. Show notes, merchandise, contact information, any of that stuff. And to go along with the contact information, peerpleasurepod@gmail.com is my email. If you want to get in touch with me, if you want to send comments, questions, guest ideas, anything really, and I'll get back to you. Sometimes it takes me a little while. Like I said before, with things being so wild right now, it can take a little bit to get back to you, but I will get back to you. And yeah, shoot me whatever you want. Okay. So, oh man. This is a good one, guys. It's 2 hours long. I'm going to get into this thing. I'm going to stop rambling and boring you to tears before you get to what you came here for. But for those of you guys who have been with me for the long haul, thank you so much. And I appreciate all the emails asking to get Spencer on. I always try to fulfill those, and I'm glad I could do that this time. And yeah, what the hell? Let's get into it, right? All right, guys, let's get into my conversation with Spencer Chamberlain from the one and only Under Oath.
Yo, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right on, bro.
What's up, buddy?
How are you?
Good. I'm sitting in a room full of boxes, and my dog decides that he wants to chew on the cardboard boxes. Hey, stop. You're not. Stop. So that will be interesting.
Nice.
Let me put up on the room real quick. Hang on.
Okay.
Come on. You're not a goat. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you. Come on. Here comes Bug. Hey. Yo, sorry.
All good, my friend.
Trying to be in this. We have the box room right now that I felt like this would probably be the quietest.
Dude, it works for me. It works for me. Right on, dude. How are you doing?
Good, man. You know, staying busy, doing everything I can in the weird state of live music in the world right now.
Yeah. I can see all those boxes, dude. You just moved?
Yeah, I just recently moved. We've got most of the place set up, but I'm like, I've got 3 boxes left and then a bunch of other stuff leaning against the wall. So I got about another month. I'd say I'd probably be moved in.
Yeah. Good Lord, dude. So this is in Asheville?
Yeah. Asheville, North Carolina.
Where were you at before that? Were you in Florida?
Yeah, well, I was in St. Petersburg, Florida. Well, originally I'm from North Carolina. So North Carolina, I moved to Florida and I stayed because of the band. Our drummer doesn't live there. So then, you know, I eventually moved to New York. I was in Brooklyn for a while. And then the band got super busy and our manager suggested that we all move back. And I moved back and Aaron never did because he's got, you know, an ex-wife with a kid out in Salt Lake. So that makes it kind of difficult. And then he got remarried and had another kid out there. So I was going to stay in St. Pete, but I think after being like COVID kind of was like, we had this idea of eventually moving to Asheville or like buying a vacation kind of rental thing with my brother and his wife or something small that we could Airbnb out later. Cause we really love it here. And I'm, you know, an hour and a half from my dad, my stepmom when I'm in Asheville. And then we were going to buy a house in St. Pete and just stay. But with COVID happening, I think it kind of like opened our eyes to be like, being here all the time kind of sucks. And Florida's kind of whack. Even though St. Pete's a really cool city, it was like, you know what, like no better time than now to just go where we want to go.
Yeah.
And just start something new. Cause it's still like, we're still looking like we're potentially could be another year out from touring. So it gives me time to get situated here and get as much work done as I can. And I normally have like a, you know, at home studio set up. And then from there, by the time, you know, we're busy again, you know, we're looking to buy something here, but it's way easier when you're here, you know? So now I'm renting for a year to get an idea of what the right investment would be as far as Asheville goes. And I've always loved it here. It's where we vacation every year. So we were just kind of like, fuck it, you know, like, why not? So,
yeah. It makes sense, dude.
Here we are.
It makes sense. That whole rent for a year thing is the way to go for sure. Yeah.
You know, even yesterday, like we drove to see my dad, you know, and my stepmom, which is cool. I haven't been able to do that, you know, since like 2001, you know, like 2002. Like I've been living far. I've been either in Florida or New York, you know, and neither one of those has ever been drivable. And it's like the perfect distance because it's like too far for the parents to just drop by, you know, like they can't just be like, hey, we're in the neighborhood, we just had to pop over, you know. It's like you're always going to call because it's too far of a drive to just pop by. So it's cool.
Yeah, there's a whole Seinfeld episode on that, the pop in, I think it's called, where the parents drop in, try not to move down to Florida, of course, but yeah, dude, that's wild, man. That's wild. I never enjoyed Florida. Just the weather, I think. And it was just a weird spot.
I can't do no seasons. And then like the way they treated COVID was pretty wild. Like St. Pete's a pretty progressive city. Like it's more liberal than the rest of Florida. Like I've always said and no one else in the band lived in St. Pete. Only I did. I was always like, man, if I'm going to live in Florida, it's going to be St. Pete. And I loved it. And then I left and I sold my house and went to New York. And then I came back to buy. And it like in the 3 or 4 years I was gone, it's like, it looked like Miami up all over it. Like all these investors came in, everything's 5 times more expensive, sky rises everywhere. Like the local charm that like I could go into a place and people like know your name or know what you order there normally. And all that kind of stuff had kind of left. And the people I did know, there's just a lot of like negativity for me in that place because of like the drugs that I used to be a big part of my life that are now not a part of my life. Like that, that was still there. And it just seemed like those people were stuck in like a black hole. Like, so I left and came back and everyone's still doing the same thing, but all the good parts of St. Pete had changed in my opinion. Like I'm all about growth and things developing. Like you can't stop growth and change, but like the stuff that I loved about it kind of changed and the negative parts were still there. So I think that I was so busy, it didn't matter. Race Me came out, we're touring all over the place. I moved right when we dropped that record. I'd moved back from New York. So 2018. And then we were back for about 2 years before we left again. And with COVID happened and us like slamming the brakes and then you're just home all the time. It was just like, dude, I don't know, man. Like not traveling, not getting any weather. Like I'm just not, I love seasons. I like winter. I like fall. Like, and it was just like, you know, if something like this happens again, like I don't want to be stuck where it's like people look at you funny when you're wearing a mask and like Trump signs in people's front yards. I mean, granted, there's places in North Carolina that are exactly the same, but like Asheville's really not that at all.
Yeah.
And, real liberal and progressive here. And you won't find like a Trump sign anywhere in Asheville, I don't think that I've seen yet. But you know what I'm saying? Like it just seemed like what a perfect taking like a negative and making it a positive. Like we were like, okay, we've been, you know, my lady isn't from St. Pete either. So we were there long enough to be like, the things we love about it is kind of not there anymore. And like, maybe we should reverse the plan. It's like, let's go live where we want to live. And if I need to have something in Florida, eventually 5-year, 10-year plan, we can get something small down there that we can rent out, which would be easy to rent out because it's Florida. And I can have a place to be when we do under oath stuff. But as of now, anyway, it's like we have to fly in Aaron no matter what. And every hotel room has 2 beds. Every Airbnb normally has 2 beds. Every rental car has more than 1 seat. It's like $100 for me to fly from Asheville to St. Pete. It's like there's a small airport here and a small airport there. It's like, dude, it's literally $89 round trip. So whatever.
Dude, that's just nothing.
Yeah.
That's a tank of gas in an SUV.
Yeah, I know. And like the guy, like our band, everyone has, their own thing going on. Like we don't really hang out unless we're working on music or touring or rehearsing for a tour. And like all of that stuff has to be planned because everyone's got so much other shit going on, So it's like, it's not like I'm missing the guys. I lived St. Pete to Tampa is only like 15 miles, but it's like with traffic, it's like an hour plus, and you're like, you might as well be living in fucking Texas at that point because you never see anyone. So it was like, dude, I went back for 2 years and didn't see a single guy in the band unless we were working on music that was planned and like fly in or crew guys are here for rehearsal. Like I didn't see anyone one time other than that, so it's like, do I need to be in Florida? Yeah.
Dude, man, I have to ask you this because, and this is going to totally make me look like an asshole to your buddy, but, so you guys had a tour manager back in, and maybe it's the same. I don't know. I haven't seen you guys in a long time. I think the last time I saw you guys was on Warped Tour in Portland. Cause we had finished touring and I was playing Warped Tour with another band, and, your tour manager back then for Define the Great Line, what was his name?
Was it Russ?
Russ. Okay. That guy let Anatomy of a Ghost stay at his house, went out middle of the night, bought us Taco Bell, treated us like absolute royalty, the sweetest guy ever. And I felt so bad because every time I saw him with you guys, I forgot his name and I was like, hey man. And I feel like such a dick, but now I know his name and I'm vindicated because
we still keep in touch. He hasn't worked for us in a really long time. He actually owns a tattoo shop in Nashville.
Oh.
He's a tattoo artist. Super great guy.
He's fantastic. And I couldn't remember his name, and I felt too bad to ask him.
Yeah, dude, it was cool. Like so he did a lot of shit with us in the past and like kind of grew up with us. And then we parted ways and like we needed a more professional, because he was like friend turned tour manager, you know, like eventually that kind of runs its course. And then the band broke up for a couple of years. And then when we did our first tour back, like our first like reunion tour, like, are we going to keep touring? We don't know, but we booked this, it sold out like that. Like he came on that tour, even though we had like a big time tour manager guy, he came on the tour to work for free just to do it. Cause he's like such a homie. Yeah. Like, so he's still like part of the Under Oath crew for sure. He's a good dude.
Shout out to Russ. That guy. I can't tell you how grateful we were to get Taco Bell. Like literally, do you guys want something to eat? Like I'll run to Taco Bell right now. And we're like, dude, you don't have to do that. He's like, I'm on my way. Just text me what you want. Like, are you kidding me? Like on tour in those days, that was gold. Like,
what year do you think that was?
That would have been 2003 or 2004.
Yeah, 2003. Because didn't Anatomy of a Ghost break up around 3 or 4?
2004 in Florida. Wow. In Miami is where we decided to finally call it quits, and then we finished a few dates of the tour, and that's why I don't like Florida as well either.
Right. Yeah, Florida is not.
That was a life-changing event in Miami, and it was just like, it was hot and gross, and it was like, this sucks. But that was back 2003 probably, because we were still touring heavy then, and that was I remember the band. I mean, I remember, and I even like, I mean, I'm still to this day a huge Portugal fan. Like love that band, and I remember that shift there, and I remember the Anatomy from the early days of touring, and even maybe right before I was touring. And like, then I remember that I was like, oh, weird. It's like it wasn't expected. Yeah. And I always thought that was cool. I like shit like that. You did that interview with Jeff from Code 7. Yeah. Jeff. Yes. And so I grew up, that's probably the band I've seen the most in my life that I haven't. Well, you can't count being on tour, the band that you see every day when you're, coming in and out. But if we're talking about off tour bands, Code 7 was one that was from the same area that I was, and they're all older than me. And I have an older brother, 2 older stepbrothers, and we used to go see Code 7 shows all the time. And my favorite thing about that band as a kid was how much it would surprise me, because their first, and they probably shouldn't say this because they probably don't want anyone to know, but their first records were kind of like nu metal, like they were like rap and stuff. Yeah. And then they were like a metalcore, quote unquote, like the singing, screaming, delay guitar, like super epic riff, like hit you in all the feels with like heavy music before anyone else was. And then the minute that clicked and everyone started doing that, they were off to doing like the space rock thing. Yeah. And every change that they did, they never lost me. Like I was never like, oh, fuck this band, this sucks now. Like I was there. I was like, dude, this is incredible. Like everything, I believed in everything they did and everything they said, and I felt like that was a cool thing when I saw some of the Anatomy guys kind of start this Portugal Man that is now this massive band. But back then it took a long time for that band to even, become what people know of it today. But I remember seeing that and be like, whoa, that's cool. Like super unexpected. And I love when a good shock in a good way. Obviously some bands I think try to do it. It's unnatural and you can hear it. Yeah, but when a band does, they want to do it and they believe in it, like you hear it in the music and you're like, damn, this is dope. Like, yeah, dude, that band is, they blew up huge, but it took a long time, like a gradual upswing, and now it's something unreal. It's like, but you guys too, you guys blew up insane too. You guys were nominated for a Grammy. Like you've been there, like you know where they're at, and it's they might appeal to maybe a more vast audience as far as their fans being from, like Britney Spears to Jon Favreau to whatever, they may be more accessible maybe to people that don't understand the screaming, but I mean, you're on that level. Like you know where they're at, but you know about the rise too, like working your way up to that point and grinding and
never giving up is something to admire. And I've always looked at that, like career bands. Like I remember getting Deftones Adrenaline as a kid and like loving it. And then through all of it, never not loving the Deftones, but I remember having a conversation with like a major label one time that was like talking about signing. I don't know if it was me for something else I was doing or if it was an under oath conversation. I don't remember. I remember and I quoted something about the Deftones and he was like, well, let's hope it would be something that's more successful than that. Because to a lot of those guys, if it's not arenas all the time, you're not a success. But to me, being a career musician and someone that loves the grind and the integrity to sticking to yourself, and like Deftones' career has had, I'm sure, bigger moments and smaller moments, but to me, it's so respectable whether they're in a 2,000 cap room or they're playing the arena that year because they had a song connect with radio or whatever it is. Like to me, it's never a failure because I'm like, if the music is constantly getting doper and like more and more sick, like I don't care if a song connects on this record. And maybe I've always admired that about that band because they'll have like every 2 or 3 records, they'll have a song at radio that connects and like reestablishes them as the biggest whatever. But to me, they're never not the kings of, heavy hard rock. Like Deftones to me is the kings. Like there's bands that come and go, blow up faster, but the faster you rise, the quicker you fall. Like to me, the Deftones are the king of, if you want to put all hard rock into one genre, to me, they're like one of the kings because they kept this trajectory to me that seems like it's going up, whether to the industry, it's had its ups and downs, but to me, it's like they're always on the up. And I think that's fucking cool.
Dude, you just told Chino that because he listens to every episode of the show. He lives here in Lake Oswego. We actually are going to lunch this weekend. He's a fan of the show and actually hit me up to come on it, which blew my fucking mind. I thought I was getting catfished, and I wasn't. But yeah, he has so much respect for so many bands, and there's so many that he doesn't know. So he comes to this show to listen to people he doesn't know and kind of figure them out. And but yeah, they always, just reinventing themselves, right? Like something they've been really good at. But he's always been cool, like his fashion, everything. Like he's always been the cool dude.
I was in the gym this morning listening to Ohms. Since it's come out, I'll put it. I'm a click and go. Like I'm an album guy. I've always been an album guy. It's probably because my dad was like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Rolling Stones guy, so I had the experience. It was always about the album, and every album I've tried to make, I want to make it feel like a journey. Like there's a reason to turn. I'll call it side A and side B because I'm a vinyl guy too. I always think about starting side A, in side A, starting side B, in side B. And I've been listening to Ohms a lot lately because obviously it's new. And I've been a fan literally since I can't remember how young I was when Adrenaline came out. I was pretty damn young, but my older brother was the one who paid for it because obviously I didn't have any money or a job. And we used to jam out in his bedroom and just like headbang and stuff. And my mom, his room was above my mom's room, and she used to always get pissed and tell us to turn it down. And saw them a couple times growing up before I was touring. And fortunately, we played a bunch of festivals with them, and I always stay and watch. And then, I remember I skipped school. Skipped school to go get White Pony. And I went to School Kids Records, which used to be this cool local record store in North Carolina that they had. I know the Code 7 guys used to like sometimes they play shows in those little tiny places like that and stuff. Yeah. And I went, and the guy was like, I looked like a baby in high school, and I remember the guy looking at me and I was like, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in school? And I was like, I skipped school and waited for the store. I waited in line outside to get the store. I got the White Pony that had the jewel case, that had the art on the jewel case. It was black. And it was like the special edition. It came with a poster and a VHS tape of like some of the videos, and it wasn't like the music videos. It was like something different. I don't know, but I remember putting that on in my room, and it was like, whoa, this is weird. It was like an alien, like
it's a White Pony movie. It's a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you put the CD in your computer, because back then you had no one had laptops.
Yeah.
In it, you could see them playing a song. I don't remember what song it was, but I remember it was like a rehearsal video, and the guy took the dude that owned the record shop took the promotional, like White Pony, Deftones, whatever coming out, whatever with the date on it. He took it off the window and gave it to me because he thought I was the youngest person there. He was like, "Oh, dude, you're so fuck." He's like, "This is cool." Like, little kid in here, thing. And that was on my room in high school until I moved away from home. But yeah, that's my long Deftones story that you could probably edit out.
Dude,
some of that.
No. I don't edit this show. I don't edit this show at all. I adjust the volume and that's it, man. This is the real deal. This isn't the Tell Me How the Tour's Going podcast. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not even a podcast, dude. It's a fucking recorded conversation. Like it's like I don't have. I was talking to Milo from the Descendants yesterday, and I was like, dude, like if I could show you my setup, like I have no notes. I've got a Mountain Dew today, and then my recorder and my microphone in the Equal Vision office. Like I don't have an agenda, which is the best part because it just happens. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that you've probably talked about exhaustively on interviews and everything else. You know what I mean? Like everyone asks the typical questions and, you know, what you've been there, you've been through it. You've talked about it. Yeah. I mean, and like just the Deftones thing, like same thing with Under Oath, like the same thing you were doing with Deftones, we were doing with you guys, because like, even though we're very similar in age, the difference between Only Chasing Safety and Define the Great Line was massive. To where I remember sitting in the tour van when Define the Great Line came out, and John, not John from Portugal, but John from my other band, The Burning Room, was like, you have to hear this. Spencer's singing with like a deep voice, like deep screaming. And I was like, really? And he puts it on. He's like, we got to do that. We have to do that now. And it was the funniest thing, because it was a big change, but also John had been a fan of Under Oath since like the first records, like the early stuff. I saw Under Oath for the first time at the Meow Meow in Portland with Dallas, I think, still singing. I'm trying to remember. I bought the shirt. It had like a stone angel on it or something.
Yeah, and that might have been before. We played in Meow Meow a handful of times, and I thought it was such a cool venue. Is that still there?
No, it's a condo. It's sure. One condo, one person there. That's their home, where we used to pack out shows.
That place was so cool.
Yes.
Oh,
but
dude,
dude,
just brought me back sweaty. Man, that place was sweaty.
Yeah, sweaty in a tiny, like barely even lifted stage. Like you could always tell which band was the most popular in town, because you would look around and see the other in-town bands watching the band. Like it was no like civilians, I guess you could say. But dude, yeah, and so like that change right there was something that was already influencing people, you know, the same way Deftones did for you, right? Like
and Coke 7 and like so many other bands. I mean, like I think the thing that gets so lost with artists and musicians is the minute they start doing something that people care about, the artists, not all of them, but I'd say a good handful of them, stop being fans of music. Like you get something and I think we've even done it at one point maybe in our lives, is that like you start hating everything, like because you have a competitive nature and you want to be the best in your genre or in your world or whatever, and you start hating on other things and you close your mind off. And I think I had to really learn to keep the kid in me, which is the reason I'm sitting here talking to you in 2020 during a pandemic with no live music is because I'm a fucking fan. Like I love music. I still listen. Like I listen to my friends, I listen to people I don't know, people I've never met, stuff that I love, stuff that I'm like, maybe I hate this, but I want to hear it. Why do I not like it? Like, and I can even listen to like a Justin Bieber song and be like, that's fucking sick. Mm-hmm. Like now I maybe like 5 years ago listened to it and be like, this stuff sucks. Like screw this pop bubblegum shit. And now I can listen to it and be like, man, that vocal performance and like I actually think it's really good. Like, you know, like, do I want to do that? No, but I can listen to all sorts of stuff now. And I'm almost to the point where I can like kind of go back to that, like of being a fan. And that's relating to what you're saying about other people, other bands inspiring other bands. Like, yes, there's a million ripoff bands ripping off said band A, B, and C, you know, like how many Korn ripoffs were they when Korn started popping off, and how many, you know, and so on and so forth. And I think that's different than being like inspired and motivated and just being a fan. Like, you know, when I'm not on tour, I still go to shows. Like back to the Deftones. I drove 6 hours one time. I was real good friends with the Mastodon guys. They were on tour with Deftones, Alice in Chains, and Mastodon, which was such a sick lineup. I'm a fan of all three bands, and I was really close with the Mastodon dudes for a really long time. And I just drove from Florida because they weren't coming to Florida, and just went to Atlanta and made a night of it, hung out with some friends, and got to watch Alice in Chains, Deftones, and Mastodon because it was worth it, because I'm a fan still, you know?
Yeah.
And I think if you can keep that, I think that's a huge thing that I've learned about my job, you know, just in my career, is like, if I lose, those are the miserable years, you know, like you got to just love it and stay a fan, and not be intimidated by the people. Bands come and go. They'll be bigger or, you know, more inspirational, and might be hot now and not tomorrow. Like that stuff just happens, and you can't take any of it personally. And like, sometimes your fans love one record more than the other, and they hate your new shit, but then you put out something else and then they like it later. You know, it's like, and as long as you're making yourself happy and you're a fan and you're listening, like I've learned to just open my mind and like listen, you know, more. I think that makes better music. Like, so I think the new Under Oath stuff that we're working on, and whenever we get to release, who knows, but like we've been writing a ton, and it's my favorite record we've ever done is Erase Me. But now whatever we're doing now is I feel like even 10 miles beyond that, because Erase Me, we had just gotten back together and we were still relearning like each other again. And it had been quite a break. And now it's like, we just toured for 2 years and we're back on that fire of like where we were, but now, you know, and we're all more open-minded, and I don't know. I'm happy to be exploring all these different spaces again with music. And that's just coming from listening. Like I don't listen to a lot of heavy stuff, but I listen to so much other shit, like, you know, and just try to keep an open mind about it.
Well, that's what gives you the edge too. That's what sparks creation. I mean, like having those other little tidbits that come in that aren't in your genre, aren't in your wheelhouse, is what gets those little sparks going in your brain, you know, like it starts bringing out things like that you would try that you normally wouldn't, you know, it exposes you to other things. If you just listen to heavy music, like there was a point in time where it seemed like every band that was in the scene, quote unquote, the scene, discovered ISIS at the same time. And the band,
which is sick.
Yes. And I did too at the same time. And then I'm like looking at like what people are doing. I'm like, this is ISIS. And, you know, but ISIS was inspired by Neurosis and then a bunch of other stuff. But like, you can see when a band's listening to what they play or similar to what they play and what they put out, and then a band that listens to something different, right? Like Chino, again, for example, doesn't listen to a lot of heavy music. He listens to a lot of crazy, weird stuff. But that's where those ideas come from. That's where the inspiration comes from. You know, you can't be in a box.
No, I mean, it's actually rare for me to listen to heavy music. And I kind of gave up on it, to be honest, for a long time. And I think I was pretty burnt by the end of the last record cycle, and something happened to me. We were like on the last tour of Erase Me, we were in Australia, and we had a full summer tour with Alice in Chains, and it was so long, and like, then we had 4 days off before we had to fly to Australia, and everyone's just like, oh my God. Like in all those shows were incredible. But when we get to Australia, you fly to every show, and sometimes the promoter they give you, no matter how big, how much money we're getting paid, we always share hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. Like that's just, we've always done that. Like my roomie is Aaron. We've since we were babies, you know, like, what's the point of paying more money when you don't have to? But when a promoter is like, who books the whole tour, like normally in Australia, it's like one guy does all the shows instead of a bunch of different people. And he just blanketed. The tour was set up before we got there. We get there, we realized, oh, we all have our own hotel room every night. That's weird, but fine, whatever. I can use some alone time because we just did a 2-year touring cycle. Yeah. In that, the new Tool record had just come out a week or two before we got there. And at this point, I was so just over anything heavy. Every heavy band starting to sound the same. Everyone's trying to go radio. Everyone's a rip off of this or whoever's doing good right now. If I hear one more band I used to know sound like another Active Rock single, I'm going to barf everywhere. And like, I was just like, dude, I don't know. Like, maybe we're going to go home and not make anything for a long time. Cause this is really getting sour. And that Tool record came out, and I'm also a huge Tool fan because of my older brother. Like, I mean, I remember Opiate, and then him getting Undertow. And I think those music videos and the artwork are some of the weirdest shit I've ever seen. Like the enema artwork where you twist it and it's like a dude sucking his own dick. It was so weird. And being a little kid, it was terrifying. And I remember that literally being like, what am I looking at? But such a huge fan, like me and my brother. And then the Fear Inoculum coming out, and I didn't get it at first. And I was kind of bummed because I was such a huge fan. And then I listened to it again and I was like, I don't know. It just like, it was missing something to me, or I wasn't getting it yet. And then in Australia, I started to walk around the cities without my GPS on, with just headphones on, and completely sober, and listen to music. And I tried the Fear Inoculum record again, and it just hit me. It was like, I think I was in Melbourne. It was late. It was probably like at least after 9 because it was dark and people were walking around. And I was in headphones. I had no idea where I was going. I was just kind of walking around the area of our hotel alone. And I was just like, it hit me and I felt like I was high. I was like, whoa, like what is going on? Like, I just felt like and it sounds super cheesy, but it felt like I was having some sort of experience. And I was like feeling all this stuff. And I was like, that's it. I just fell in love with music all over again. Heavy music. Yeah. If it wasn't for Fear Inoculum hitting me, I think when it did, like being in Australia alone, walking around, end of a 2-year cycle, the band's not really getting along. Everyone's kind of fucking burnt. Just like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to see you until sound check. Like, fuck. And it hitting me, I think if it wasn't for that experience, I don't know if I would have been able to write what we've been writing a lot. And I think we're done writing the record. And I can like kind of pinpoint almost to that experience, like me, like kind of falling head over heels for that record. And I remember listening to it all the way through and then going back to my hotel room and listening to it 2 more times in a row, like headbanging in my room like a kid. Granted, this was like only this is not a lot long ago. This is last summer. Yeah. Like, I think I cried a little bit. Like, I was like having all these like emotions and just like, I was like, damn, I need to create with Under Oath again. Like, we have to do this. Like, we have to do that. And not as in like, let's rip off Tool, sure, as in like taking someone on a journey again and like feeling that. And I think I've just been so burnt with all these scene bands, heavy metal bands, metalcore, everyone kind of feeling in the same, like it happens. Like you just said about the ISIS thing, like you tell when everyone was listening to ISIS, like it felt like everyone at the same time just decided like, hey, we need a song on the radio or whatever. Like some people, it happened naturally. Some people maybe it not, but like either way, it kind of felt all like it's kind of getting icky to me. Like it was kind of like, I couldn't even hear a song on like satellite radio without being like, maybe throwing up a little bit, like I was just like, oh, like more of it and just like, but then that record hitting me when it did, I was just like, that saved my heavy life, I think, because I was like, yep. And there's still life out there. Yeah. And that came from a bunch of dudes, in their 50s?
Yeah. Or very close to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, damn, like that's so sick. So sick.
Man.
But yeah.
will you say like, and I've had those moments too, where something finally opens up to you, and it goes way back. Like I used to hate music with screaming. I didn't understand it. And then one time I was having a fight with my girlfriend, and I had bought Poison Wells Tear from the Red, and I hated it. I hated it. And I put it on my alarm clock CD player, and I turned it on, and I was so fucking mad. And that's the Botchla comes in, and I was just like, yes. And I just my body was overcome with anger, but also like pleasure. It was weird. And I understood it. And from then on, I listened to that kind of stuff all the time. And of course I get burnt on it, but I understood it. And now when I try to explain what I'm listening to at work or something, people are like, what are they even saying? I'm like, dude, just give it a chance. Listen to it. Like obviously you've not been in that place. And so far, this was way before, of course, Fear Inoculum. But I've had that similar experience to where you felt like this, like this electricity, right? Like, and you were saying you felt high, like, you know, on a different level. I mean, were you clean? Were you sober before Erase Me? Had you already gotten sober by the time you guys started writing and recording that?
Not writing, but recording.
Okay. So
and by sober, I still drink like occasionally. I got off all the drugs. Okay. While we were writing that record.
Okay. Were you using cocaine and like pills or what?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Just a mix, because I was curious on that because, you know, being in recovery myself too. And I mean, it's a weird road, but things that give you that feeling again can be really transformative, you know?
Yeah. Like, it's awesome.
And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and so being burnt out, of course, at the end of a tour without something to like boost you up or just I'll just have some of this and it'll fucking like light me up.
Yeah.
That had to be completely transformative to experience that.
Really, and it was incredible. Like I called my older brother from Australia, just like, cause he said he had a similar experience with that record as well. And it's funny that you mentioned Poison the Well, because I was a fan of Deftones. Like I told you, I was a fan of Linkin Park when they first came out, and still to this day love everything they ever did. Fan of Korn, was a massive Korn fan. In Code 7, like I explained to you, and like it had a lot of melody while they were screaming too, like back and forth. But the first band that was like mostly screaming, I remember my brother getting into Poison the Well, and it was Opposite of December, which is the record right before Tear from the Red. Yep. And listening to it, and being a guitar player my whole life, I really like the guitars, and like especially when they do like the delay parts and stuff. And I was like into it. It felt emotional, like with the music, but I couldn't get into the vocals until one day it hit me right in the face. And it was Opposite of December. And that was one of those experiences exactly like what you had. And it was like life changing. And then all of a sudden I was listening to more and more bands that were predominantly screaming, or at least 50-50 or more, even though I've always leaned more towards the like that sexy, sad, dark, like that like melody over something dark that just makes you like want to curl up and die kind of thing. But there was something that did happen to me, which is, and then the band I was in, I was the singer, but I did not scream at all. And then they're like, oh, you got to start screaming. Cause like the local bands were doing it more, and I just figured it out. I was like, I don't know. I just figured it out. Like, but yeah, it was Poison the Well. And it was a funny experience. Is like, I never was like into the business stuff. I didn't do the numbers game. I didn't care about sales. All I wanted was, you know, people in the crowd. And then my next goal was like, man, if I ever hear someone singing back my lyrics, that's it. We made it. And then that happened. And then, you know, when Define the Line came out, went number 2, like it sold, it was like 98,000 something copies first week. I didn't know what that number meant. I had to call my older brother and be like, was it just like nothing came out this week, or like, should I be proud? Like, is that a lot? He was like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you know, I was like, I keep hearing people say congrats. I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, like we were on tour at the time. Like we just kind of didn't stop. I didn't really know. And then when it hit me that we were doing something like important, it wasn't because of the big number. It wasn't because sold out shows. Like, yeah, that was cool. Hearing people sing it back to me. But the real moment where I kind of had to take a step back and go like, what? is when it was like, oh, we're doing a tour with Poison the Well, but they're playing before you. And I was like, no, they're not. No, like that makes me feel uncomfortable. I was like, no, I was like in the front row a few years ago, like finger pointing, singing every word. I was like, we can't. Like it's just wrong. Like, well, you're bigger than they are. I was like, number one, I don't believe you. And B, no, like that doesn't matter. Like they were here first. Like they're more important. They're a more important band than Under Oath. Like we're not playing after them. And in my mind, everyone would leave. And granted, it was a great tour. No one left, and everyone had a great time. I think we could probably ask the Poison the Well guys. They probably said they had a great time. At least I hope. But we became great friends with them, and that was such a cool tour for me. And I was just like, I still felt weird every night. I was still super young, and I was just like, something feels wrong about this. But I was like, I was getting to tour with like some of my idols, you know, like as far as that kind of music went. I was like, dude, what is happening? Like, why are we playing after as well?
How did you reconcile that every night? Did you finally come to grips with it, or was it something that every night was still weird to you? Like,
it was weird.
Why am I up here now?
It was weird, and it was like, because I knew they had gotten big, because I remember they got big on Tear from the Red, and I remember they were in a bus and stuff. And if I remember correctly, they were in a van on that tour, probably to save money. But like I remember like walking on the bus and seeing them pull up in a van, and I was just like, I've never been someone to be like, yeah, man, like we're fucking killing it, like we're doing, you know, like, I've never been the like, you know, brush the dirt off the shoulder kind of guy, like no big. I've always been like uncomfortable. Like when I would see stuff like that, I would be like, I felt like, should I go up and see if they want to like, you know, crash in one of our bunks or like sleep on the couch? I was like, I just would always feel weird. And I think Under Oath had a little bit of a hard time with some of that stuff. Like we'd just be like, make us feel uncomfortable sometimes, like just pulling up and then the other bands are in a van and you're like in this bougie bus and you're like, wait, shoot, what's going on? Like, you know?
Yeah.
But when you got a crew and you got people that have families and, you know, like, a lot of those crew guys they're not going to stick around if they're not getting compensated well and they're not comfortable and you know, all that stuff makes sense. And you understand that later as you get older. But I remember when we hired our first sound guy, and I'm like, why the fuck are we spending money and putting another guy in the van? Cause we're still in a van. I was like, this sucks. You don't need a sound guy. And our guitar player, Tim, I was like, dude, we do. You don't understand. Like someone that doesn't know our sound, every night it's a gamble for the fans paying tickets. And I've always come from the like touring age of when you didn't have the sound guy and you just showed up and it was what it was. The PA wasn't good anyway. It didn't matter. But I think that was another growing pain for me, is like not understanding that people are actually spending money and waiting in line to see our band now. And like they expect it to sound a certain way, or they might be more mad that they pay money if it sucks, you know, it sounds like shit. And like, that's our fault if we don't spend our own money on a sound guy. So then there we are in a 15 passenger van now with, you know, more like 11 people as opposed to 10. And then it became 13 people. And then we had to get an RV, like we rented an RV and then you rent a bus. I remember our first bus being a 2000, or it was like in 1989. It was something old. It was in 89. Yeah. And it broke down all the time. We missed like half the shows on Warped Tour, all that fun stuff. You know, like we definitely did the like, let's go as slow as possible as getting the things that we need.
Yeah. Kicking and screaming the whole way.
We were kids. And I don't think there was any anticipation that it was going to be something big. I think that's what our scene was. It was like the reason why we, you know, even when Under Oath first started, when I first started in Under Oath, or when I was in another band that was also a screamo or metalcore, whatever you want to call it, at the same time, I was still listening to like Coldplay Parachutes and like, you know, like stuff that was popular on the other side of the world, and loved that. Radiohead was one of my first tattoo on my arm when I was 18 was stuff from in the inside of OK Computer. Like, but there was something really appealing about the scene, quote unquote scene. It was this underground movement of all these kids that didn't fit in school and fit in life. And we all had black hair and dressed the same. And that wasn't very popular in high school or wherever. And it was like, almost like these personal invitations. Like you get these flyers and like to the rest of the school, the lame kids, like the weirdos are like up to something, but like to us, it was like only the cool kids are getting the flyers, you know, like, but in our group, like we think, oh, y'all suck. Like, even though you guys think about us for being different, but like, it was like, there's something super romanticized about that movement in my brain, which is why we started heavy music. And like, dude, we could have written pop or rock songs, or, you know, we all used to listen to Blink-182 as well, or whatever, like Coldplay, Radiohead, anything that was way more accessible. And I came from bands where I just used to sing and, you know, a little bit more structured, and like, but there was something about this scene. And once you got into it, you kind of forgot about everything for a minute, and you're like, oh, this is home. And then you're seeing that there's these homes in all these cities that you start to tour regionally, and then a little bit more, and then it grows. And now you're leaving the East Coast and moving, and you're seeing it everywhere. And like, man, this is like, it was this huge movement, but it never was a thought that it was going to be forever. You know, you weren't going to think 15 years we're going to be doing this. Yeah. Not that we weren't going to be doing music, but you didn't think like this underground thing was going to blow the lid off and become more mainstream or become accepted worldwide, you know, and now we've been from places to like, we've toured South Africa and played, you know, all the way to Sweden and everything in between, you know, like Malaysia and, you know, Singapore, you know, it's like, it became this worldwide thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, like, that was never the plan. So all those growing pains were very like, yeah, you felt like you're maybe kicking and dragging your feet a little bit, because you were like, no, like now we're changing it, and we don't even know why it's changing. And people on the outside are going like, there's too much at stake. Like, there's too many tickets are being sold. You guys are making money. You need a manager, you need a booking agent, and now you need a sound guy, and then you need a guitar tech, because kids are paying, and like the first song, something's wrong with the guitar, and they're sitting through 3 songs of feedback and the band playing, and you know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. You can't afford to do that. So now you need this. And we were just the whole time like, wait, why do we need this stuff? And now looking back, it's like, oh, I get it. You know, you did, and you do. As the thing keeps growing, you have to have more and more things to pull it off the right way. Yeah. Like, I can only imagine what goes into like a U2 concert, you know what I mean? Like the amount of stuff, you go once in a lifetime kind of thing. Like, my dad being a Rolling Stones fan, like him and his wife have gone to see them maybe twice, and they're in their 70s. What happens if the one time you go and you spend $500 on tickets, the guitar's out of tune? That doesn't fucking happen. Yeah. It can't happen, you know? And I've seen that, and I've seen that like playing with some of my idols, like 9 Inch Nails is another band that I grew up loving and watching. And I remember Robin Fink getting a guitar, and they were coming in on The Hand That Feeds, and that riff, he picked it up, and it was a fucking half step down, and he played it, and he was with his guitar tech, fucking threw a gold top Les Paul, which for anyone listening who doesn't know how much a gold top Les Paul is, for all of us guitar players listening, including myself, it's almost unattainable. Yeah. Like, they're so expensive. And I've never had one. I don't know if I'll ever be able to have one, but this dude just, that's how mad he was. Cause that's unacceptable. Like, he threw it up in the air because there's fucking 20,000 people, you know, even though I played the festival, I took a shower, went through catering, ran out to the front and stood in the crowd just like everyone else. Cause I'm like, this is one of my favorite bands. I don't give a shit if you watch my band and you want to bother me for a photo. That's fine. Get in here. Let's watch this band. Like, I don't care. And then I remember seeing him throw it up in the air, and all I could think was like, oh God, that poor guitar tech's going to fly home tonight. Oh boy. Like, feeling so bad for him. But like, I get it though. It's like looking at some of those people in the crowd that aren't as fortunate as me to be able to play with some of your idols. Like, this could be the one and only time they get to see them. Like, how much did they save up for it? How long did they wait in line? Like, they've been waiting all night for this. Like, they spent too much on food and beer or whatever and merch. Like, everything's upcharged, and then they get up there and could have been your favorite song they have, and it's out of tune. Like, that's crushing, you know? So yeah, the things that you, I guess you change your mind about. Yeah, dude.
Joe from Anatomy of a Ghost after we broke up, he teched for Circus Survive for one tour, and the first note of the first night of the first song, he had tuned Brendan's guitar wrong, and it's what's the song? Is it Holding Someone's Hair Back or Acting Appalled? The one that starts out with like a strumming chord, just like, and it was all wrong. And everything stopped, and one guy in the front just said, "Sweet chord, bro." And so now Joe's known as Sweet Chord Bro to the Circus Survive guys because it was the most embarrassing fuck up on the first night, first song. And that guy, the one random guy, like no one said anything except Sweet Chord Bro. Anyway, but that, was way earlier. But yeah, you got to think about your crew's lives, your lives, like the lives of people getting babysitters and fly. Like when Thrice canceled that one show because Dustin was so sick, people were commenting like, I flew 5 hours for this show, got a hotel room. And it's like, they felt bad about it. They've never canceled a show. Even when Riley hurt his back, like they went acoustic. But this was like, I cannot physically sing. And people were pissed. And I was like, well, of course they're mad, but you don't think about that in the machine. Like, and I love that you think about that and see what goes into that. You guys would be one of the bands that you were in a van and the crew had a bus. I would love to see that. You guys would be one of those bands, I think, where you guys are cruising in the van, but the crew has the nice bus and they're sleeping at night and you guys are driving through doing your thing.
Yeah, we would die. But yeah, we make sure we try to do our best to make sure everyone's comfortable and try to keep our crew guys around. We want a family feel. Like we don't like new people coming in and out all the time, but we understand people move on and like get better offers or, and now who knows what the future holds because everyone's been home for so long. They might have picked up real jobs or whatever, but I know that exact feeling, man. It's like,
yeah, it's crazy. And think of it, even with the Portugal guys, we did a tour with Poison the Well. We opened for Poison the Well, and it was Poison the Well, Heavy Low, Fear Before, and us. And it was an incredible tour. Everyone was in a van. Everyone hung out every day. I mean, I'd hang out with Chris Hornbrook and just watch him warm up on drums. Like Ryan and I would go to music stores and like geek out on guitar shit. Like Jeff and I would play all these weird games and like, it was just an awesome, beautiful time. And that band fucking rules. And, it's just incredible. It's incredible to go from listening like you did, like being a fan to then headlining over them, but playing with them nonetheless and getting to know them as people. And, that's they're also the reason I don't play music anymore. I got like a random offer from Ryan to play bass for them. And they were more my style at the time. And I told the Portugal guys, hey, I'm going to move to Florida and join Poison the Well after this European tour. And so they replaced me while I was there. So when I got back, they'd have a new person. Poison the Well got a tour and took off with a buddy and he ended up staying on. So I got back with no job and I was like, fuck that.
Okay.
So,
dude, and talking about the canceling a show because you're so sick you can't perform, and like what goes into that, like it's so wild. Like you were talking about like Thrice or whatever, and like so you have all this stuff in motion to where you make it is humanly possible, almost unhuman, to pull off all shows all these nights in a row so fans feel like that was the best one, they got the best of the band. But one thing like that happens in people, to see people just fucking claws out on the band and you, it's like pretty disheartening because I've only missed one show in my entire life and one radio performance. So we did a bunch of radio stuff acoustically and I got food poisoning. We had just done like 20 of them and I had to like order food and I think it was sushi and I just by 6 a.m. I'm throwing up and I'm like, dude, we got to be on at 8 a.m. I can't. Like I can't even hold anything down. I'm not going to go show up to a radio station and throw up all over the floor, but there was one real show I had to cancel and that's because I was in the hospital and I've never, ever canceled anything. Even when I was like way into drugs, I would never use drugs before a performance because I wouldn't want to fuck it up. Like I wouldn't mess it up for a fan. Like I didn't perform like that, like I was like, if I'm going to use drugs, it's going to be as soon as I get off stage and all night and I can sleep all day if I have to or whatever, but I would never jeopardize performance. And I remember getting sick one time and our bus driver having to take me to the hospital and I had to have IVs and stuff and I missed a show. And yeah, I feel for the kids that wait for it, but it's like, man, that sometimes unfortunately we are human as well. And that stuff does happen. Like, you can't control that. And especially as much as you travel, like you're going to catch something somewhere. Yeah. I got the flu on that. We did with Breaking Benjamin, which for us was really out of our element. We thought we'd never do a tour like that, but they asked us to do this tour, going back to the open-minded thing. And we were, to be completely honest with you, we were like, no way we're going to do a tour with Breaking Benjamin. Like our fans are going to be mad. Like, do we want to tour with a band like this? And then we were end up doing like, even if, back to Justin Bieber, even if like someone like that asks you to tour, as long as you're being yourself, playing your songs, doing the best version of you, it doesn't matter who you play in front of. You want to play in front of, dude, fucking Katy Perry fans for all I care, and fucking knock their socks off. As long as you do you, you're not changing your set list to cater towards other people. So we took that tour, and it was the best thing we ever did, because we left with like, we met these dudes. They ended up becoming like some of the nicest people we'd ever met, or I guess at this point had never met, and now still to this day, still talk to those guys like, dude, it was a tour so fun, and they treated us so well, better than any other band that's ever taken us on tour. Like they're just the best. And the crowds were sick, and but we played some cities we'd never been to, and I would dive in the crowd every night still, and like an idiot, and I caught some weird flu, and like luckily we had a day off the next day, but I was like, I couldn't even move my arms to make a text on my phone. I was so sick, like it was awful. And then the next day I had a day off, and the next day I literally had no voice all morning, couldn't even sing a sound check. I was like, there's no way I could do this. And just adrenaline kicked in. I did a vocal warm up, went up on stage, and was completely fine. But man, like those moments when you have to cancel, like I canceled in 2010 at some point because I was in the hospital, and that was food poisoning, and there was no way. Like I was hooked up to IVs, and I couldn't move. And they were like, if you would have waited like 6 more hours, you might have died because you were so dehydrated because of how much I was throwing up and stuff. And like,
oh my God.
But that stuff does happen. And it's like, people get pissed. And I guess it's understandable. The gut reaction is to be mad that you're missing the show that you waited for and paid for. But at a certain point, you have to think, well, like these are human beings. Like as an entertainer, like I think to people you're not, or at least that's not your like initial thought. It's just, you're kind of like the machine at that point. You're just like, no, I paid for this, I'm going to see it. You're like, well, you might not, because this dude can't even stand up, he's so sick, that's it's going to happen.
Exactly. So, think of the people that work regular jobs. Think of the last time you called in to work sick legitimately, not just to fuck off for the day, and then try to do what you do, right? Why don't you go run up fucking 12 flights of stairs and then yell at the top of your lungs and then run up some more and try not to throw up and try to put on a show? Like, you can't do that. I mean, it's crazy. And to take back to one thing you were saying there, you said you wouldn't use before going on stage. Was that because when you were high that you would fuck up the music, or was it you thought people would know you were high on stage, like they would see that something's wrong with Spencer or something's different? Like, what was it about before you went on that would then leave once the show was over, as far as like, okay, it's go time?
Because I have a job to do, and I'm lucky as fuck to be in my position. No matter how fucked up, I've had some dark years, I've had really good years, I've had really bad years. Even at my lowest, I care too much about the show, like in the fans, and like, because I'm still a fan. I'm one of the kids in the crowd a lot of the times. Like I care too much to be that selfish. Like, well, I want to feel good right now. I'm going to get high. I want to. I'm selfish. It's like that. I just never. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Like, no pun intended. But like, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Like I was like, if I'm gonna get fucked up, it's gonna be on my own terms and not jeopardize anything else. And I'd always have my press always started after sound check anyway. I was like, I got to be good for sound check. And even in my darkest times, I could always turn it off at the end of the night. And I think that's because luckily that's the kind of, some of my friends would go on benders for days and stay up and you keep getting fucked up. Yeah. Even when I was using every single day for years on end, I would stop every night. Even if I stayed there staring at the ceiling until 7 a.m, I would stop. because I'm like, I have some stuff to do tomorrow. Like I can't miss an interview. I would never let it affect the band, even though it did affect our relationships, because I was going through stuff and I was different, and you're high. You could be an asshole. You could be an asshole when you're hungover. But I wasn't going to let it affect immediate bands. Like as in like someone from the crowd's going, well, that's the singer was all fucked up, which we've all seen that happen before. Like where you left going like, was that dude on something? Or was he like drunk? Like he was behind the band, like kind of dragging, looked all weird. Like I was never going to let my demon affect immediate band, which would be like interviews and studio or a performance. And I'm like, I worked around that schedule. I always put Under Oath first. Almost in an unhealthy way, which I think is part of the drug use in the first place, is because I would come home from these tours and I couldn't focus on anything but what's the next Under Oath event? Is it 7 days from now? Is it 3 days from now? Is it 3 months from now? My life started and stopped, woke, dreamed, slept, shit, ate, breathed Under Oath, almost in an unhealthy way, to where I had to figure something out in the off time to make that feeling, and I think I still put Under Oath way up there, but I've learned how to balance life. Like being the singer and the front man is like, it's your story. It's your, like, you feel, I don't know. It's like, it's your identity so much, it's like you are this thing that people are listening to, whether you are or not, and to me, funny enough that 10% of the music I probably write is Under Oath. I have all this other stuff that I do and it sounds nothing like it, but to the world, I am this thing over here, in this little sliver of my life. So it's in certain times in my life, I did let engulf my whole physical and emotional being, to where I couldn't do anything that wasn't that. And I would start and stop my days around it. And the only good thing that came from that was that I would stop using drugs, even if I was having the best time ever, to make sure I have enough time to be ready for tomorrow's Under Oath event, be it a phone interview or sound check, because there's a show, and I managed that for an unhealthy amount of time before I was like, I can't do this anymore,
Yeah. See, that's the interesting thing to me, Spencer, is that's fascinating about this whole thing. I mean, I know, when substances can take over your entire life, you still had something that meant more to you than that. And some people never make it to that point of having something that, whether it's children or a band, sports, whatever. I mean, there's people that will leave their kids on the couch unattended for hours while they're using, like the thing that should stop you from doing that. You never lost that. You never lost sight of that. And that's fascinating to me, that demon could be shut off enough for, even, like you said, anything with the bit. So interviews, like the 28th time that day you get asked how the tour is going, because it was tied to Under Oath, was big enough to, where people basically are ready to just like jump off a cliff after some of those interviews, like from the same thing over and over again. Because it was tied to what you love most at the time or at all. It's amazing that you could shut that off and not lose sight of that. That's inspiring because, and fascinating as well, because just seeing how many people go down the hole and keep going, Yeah.
And I did keep going for a very, very, very long time. And like, it did affect every other asset of my life in negative ways. And I was super unhealthy for a while. And I think that I'm like, I talk about it a lot in interviews and on stage. And like, I know there's a big misconception to people that are in the situation I might've been in. Like what you're saying, like some people don't have that. Like I don't view myself as better than anyone because I've gotten over my drug addiction years and I'm now smarter and wiser, like almost like the Christian thing of when a Christian person comes to talk to you about your problems and they know your problems better than you. And just listen to me and follow me. And it's so disgusting. It turns you off even more. Like I kind of want to go do more shit because this dude's talking to you and it's like, who the fuck is this guy kind of thing?
Yeah.
I I try to put that across too, because I think there's a lot of like recovery type places that have the same vibe. It's always been a huge turnoff for me. And like my friends that never used drugs or didn't use drugs, like trying to help me, it was always like, the fuck do you know? Or like, like, dude, leave me alone. Like, just because like you're too scared to have this experience that I'm having, and you don't know how good it is to risk health and life to feel this way because you're too scared, and like, but you're talking to me like you're better than me, or whatever the mentality might be. Like, I try to like really put that forward as like, I am not better than anyone that's using drugs right now in this very moment, listening to this interview or last night or whatever. I come in as like, I'm fucking lucky that I had something I loved enough, like music and live music, to keep me like barely tethered to the ground. And like, I'm talking like barely, like by like a string of a hair, it was about to break, and I don't come at anyone like I'm better than you just because I'm past it right now. Doesn't mean anything. It's just, I try to talk to people. It's like, I don't have any answers. I don't know if there is an answer that works for everyone. I don't believe that there is. I think it's different for everyone, but I can relate, or you can relate to me. And I try to write it in my lyrics to where you can relate to them, and hopefully that makes it feel better. But I'm no answer. I'm not a fucking hero. I'm not a savior. Like, I'm just a dude that's had these experiences, and I write about them. And I try to share that with people, because I'm like, in case you're in that situation, or you've been, or right now, or you might be further down the road, but like, I'm writing songs about it and I talk about it, but I try never to come across as the, like, I know what I'm doing and like being clean, and like I have this routine of what works and all this stuff that like I'm better me now because I've done that. Like, I'm more healthy and I feel better, but I don't view myself as like a better person. I'm just like, I try to, I don't know. I try to keep that out there, is that like, it doesn't make us better.
Sure.
You and I are right now not users or whatever. And like, I think it's just, I try to just talk about stuff that people might be going through. And I don't have any answers. Like, I was in a podcast the other day, and the guy was like talking to me about, like, it's interesting that I still can manage to have drinks without falling off the wagon. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Drinking to me never really, I don't know. I don't think I'm making excuses. I'm like, I just don't have any answers for you, bud. Like, I've always, a thing that I always did when I was using, like some of the friends I did drugs with that would go on these benders, or, would go a little bit more crazy than me, I would always have these conversations where I would tell the person that I don't want to be an all or nothing guy, because I'm on tour with these guys that can't even be around a beer in the green room, or they're going to lose their shit, or they're going to fall off the wagon. And like, like people that have to be in meetings all the time, like, I'm glad that they're doing that, but I don't ever want to be there. And I was abused, and I was walking a really fine line and on a tight rope. But like, I just would always talk. That's maybe another reason why I would like make myself stop at the end of every night, because I like, my dad is in his 70s and still has a glass of wine with dinner. I want to have a bottle of champagne when my kid graduates college or whatever, or gets married or something. Like, I don't want it to be like someone opens a bottle of champagne and I'm off the rails. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't want to live that. I don't want to be that guy, because I see it all around me, and I'm happy that those people are clean. And I think everyone's addiction and levels of it are different for everyone. Some people can't even see beer or wine without wanting to. Maybe you're an alcoholic and you want to drink everything, or that triggers you to want to go buy Oxycontin or Coke or whatever, or like smelling weed makes you want to use other drugs. Like, I'm not that guy. Maybe I'm just lucky. And I don't think that I have an answer for anyone who's not that person. I always talked about that. Like, I didn't want to be an all or nothing guy. I don't want the whole band to have to be sober because I can't fucking control myself. Like, I didn't want to do that. And I think I just chose that life for myself. And I don't know if we can choose that, but I feel like I manifested that in myself from day one of like using heavy drugs, as I was like, all right, I'm never going to be that guy, because I've been on tour with those guys. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that's fucked up at 50, but I also don't want to be the guy who has to have a sober green room, because if he sees a Coors Light can, he's off the rails, you know, like, so I don't know, I guess I've just been really lucky to, like, it's almost like listening, like we were talking about earlier, like listening to music, like listening to your body and your feelings, and like letting that be like kind of a guide for you. It's like, I just didn't want to be that, so I didn't become that, you know?
Yeah.
And
I mean, do you remember day one? Do you remember the first time you experienced that? I mean, like, what were you doing before that was satisfying that side of you? Did you have things before that weren't substances? That, I mean, of course, playing in a fucking awesome band is an amazing feeling, and being on stage, I can't describe it to people either. The feeling of people screaming your words back at you, or the words of the songs, and that feeling on stage where you're playing a place that's so huge, you can see the first 5 rows of people, but if they turn the lights on, you're going to pass out because of how many people are there, fucking the energy they're giving to you that you're feeding back to them. I mean, do you remember that? I mean, back to that time, like that was a long time ago, I would imagine.
Oh, I remember the first time we felt any sort of live feeling in the crowd, of the capacity. And I mean, but I've been in bands my whole life, you know. Yeah. I think I've all had that. Like, I think I played my first show in a venue, like a venue, like smoky venue that sells alcohol and has a stage and a PA. I think I was probably 12. Mm-hmm. Like I've been playing music my whole life and playing shows my whole life, so I've always had that. And my band when I was in high school did pretty well regionally. Like like we toured and had a decent following in the North Carolina and Virginia, different cities, North Carolina and Virginia, and mm-hmm. maybe some of South Carolina, that kind of thing. Like, and then after high school, I was in a sign band and then joined up with the Under Oath dudes, but I've always, had the music thing. But I do remember the first time feeling those feelings on stage though, where people are giving you that energy back. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the first time people sang our lyrics back. And that was like at this, do you remember the Auto Bar in Baltimore?
I do. Yes, I do.
In 2004, we were on Warped Tour. We couldn't afford much. That's the same summer our record came out. Every day we'd pass out flyers with our picture on it. And on the back, it had the release date of Chasing Safety. We'd write on a Sharpie, Smart Punk Stage, because back then Smart Punk Stage wasn't on the blow up sign for some reason. They wouldn't allow it. They were like outside, like they weren't, I don't know, stupid, but we weren't on the schedule. So we had to go, we wake up and they wouldn't push your gear. They wouldn't put your gear on the trucks. So you had to push your own gear. Rain to the mud, the gravel parking lots, pulling that shit across it like a bunch of kids. We wake up and we hit the line every day, and half the people look at the flyer and throw it on the ground or whatever, Mm-hmm. But we filled every off day. I think we only had 2 off days on the whole tour because we filled every off day with a show. And we filled, I think they were always Silverstein or maybe Silverstein and the Bled. I don't remember, but they were all, I know Silverstein was on a handful of them. And I think the Bled was on a handful of them. But we were that kind of band. We never took days off, especially in the early years. And you were only playing like 30 or 45 minutes anyway. Yeah. Whatever. But I remember one of the first off-day shows after Chasing Safety had come out. We probably did like 2 weeks on Warped Tour with it out. And then there was an off-day show. And it was at the Auto Bar in Baltimore. And we opened up with the Blue Note, which was like a sample that went into Dangerous Business, and it does this countdown. And I heard the kids counting down. It was pitch black, and I heard them do the countdown, and my heart just kind of like started skipping a beat. And then we hit in. This was before we were on in-ears, and I couldn't hear anything. All I could hear was the crowd singing every word. And I looked back at Aaron, our drummer, and I was just like, we fucking did it. And for anyone listening who doesn't know what the Auto Bar is, it's like a 300 cap room. Yeah. It's not like you're a rock star, but to us, I was like, there are people singing the words. And that was the most incredible feeling that I will never, ever, ever forget. I think ever. And I just remember going, what the fuck? It just blew my mind. Like I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And that's the first moment I realized. The other guys quote it. Some of the other guys quote their experiences a little bit different, but it was within a day or two. Some of the other guys say Alley Cats, which was a venue in Virginia, which must have been the day before or after one of the off day shows before or after, because Virginia and Baltimore are right there. So it was in the same time, but my experience was Baltimore.
Man,
crazy.
That's insane. It's a beautiful moment too. And it's something, I felt in similar ways. Like I understand the feeling. I know yours is different than mine, but it's something, I wish everyone could feel that, and one thing I wanted to bring up real quick is talking about before we jump off the being able to turn things off and be present for Under Oath, be present for, and also tying into not canceling shows, things like that. I had a buddy that, and I talked about this with Tim on his episode, because I told him if I ever, in music run across the Under Oath guys, I'm going to tell this story to them. And his name's Kyle Cook, and he had cancer. And
I know.
Yes, you probably do. But Tim, he was biggest Under Oath fan, right? Like, he lived by what you guys were doing. He was so enamored by it and loved it so much. And Warped Tour, you guys brought him in, like, let him stand side stage, watch the show. Like, it was like all he could do to get to the show, because he was really advanced cancer. And Tim gave him his guitar, which I believe his brother has now. And but soon after that, he passed away. And
I remember.
But think about, as sad as it is to say it, how often that happens. Like, we had a Warped Tour where we played a show, and this guy and girl came up and were saying, you're our favorite band, which you hear a lot, and you don't necessarily take it for granted, but you hear it a lot. Or your band saved my life, or whatever. The next time we came through that town, he came by himself, and he told us that on the drive home from that Warped Tour, that they only came to Warped Tour to see us, she died in a car accident.
Oh,
so the fact that she came to see us, she wouldn't have been on that road, and she'd still be alive, right? How often that stuff happens, but how special each one of those shows is, and that shows and ties together to how you could be, put aside the demon and be there for those people, everyone in that room on point. Henry Rollins is the same way. Like, that show means everything to me. I would pay to be on that stage, right? Like, I cannot be sick. I cannot be, out of commission. He'll choose his food and travel with food he knows won't make him sick, so he can be on point. You're the same way. Like, you have that drive. And so, on the subject of Kyle, the way you guys treated him is something I remember to this day. And I wasn't even there. Like, I was at the Warped Tour, and I saw him on stage losing his mind. His hair was going, and but man, they were playing Under Oath at his funeral. They put his funeral, it was in 5 different churches on video screens, because so many people went to that funeral. It was insane. But like I said, I made a promise, like I would always talk about him if I ran into you guys or we crossed paths. So I did the same thing with Tim. But the way you guys treat your fans and view your fans is just it's a testament, man.
I talk about that a lot, is that it could be someone's first show ever. It could be their last show ever.
Yeah.
And the other honest truth is, more than likely, there's some fucking kid in that crowd who's 10 times better than every single one of us on that stage that deserves to be there. But life, maybe it does work out for him to be that way, or life just has a different role for that kid. And he never gets the opportunity. There's some people in that crowd that will cut their fucking hand off to be on that stage in front of those people, and like, I think that's always in the back. I think Under Oath has always kind of drilled that into each other, and that checking each other at different times when things have gotten out of hand, or things are going people are being pulled in different directions, and things are going well or things are going bad. Either way, I feel like we've always had that, like, we're not these like guitar gods, and like, none of us were like classically trained and brilliant musicians. Like, we're people that are just really passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us learn how to play by ear, and we're so in love with instruments, and like came from like, you know, most of us didn't come from places where we got opportunities to get lessons and spend money on music stuff, and had really shitty hand-me-down instruments. If you didn't have to go out and work for it to get yours, like my first guitar, I had to cut lawns until I could pay for it myself. Like we just wanted it. And it's always been the fire, I think, that, as cheesy as that sounds, that kind of burns inside of each guy in the band, to where, like we were talking about earlier with the never using drugs before shows, because that it doesn't matter. You could drug me as much as you want, and I won't forget that. Like, that could be someone's first show, it could be someone's last show, it could be someone in that crowd who deserves to be there way more than you do. So don't be a shithead, you know? And I think even in the depths of addiction years, I could never do that. Like, for example, during this off time, I'm writing lots of music, working with lots of people, and doing all sorts of cool shit with music. But when it first hit, me and Aaron, who's our drummer, decided that, like, hey, let's do something fun. Like, let's see if kids would be interested in some like handwritten lyrics and like stuff that, like memorabilia stuff that we would want from our favorite bands. Like, I Would Die from a piece of paper with Trent Reznor had written lyrics on, or something like that. Yeah. You know, like, so we decided to open these stores. Mine went way out of hand. I had to shut it down because I have so many orders. I still have so many orders to fill that I stopped it, because I was like, oh my God, obviously that's great that people care that much. But even with that, like, so I could go like this on a piece of paper, right? Mm-hmm. And write the lyrics to In Regards, or Writing on the Walls, or whatever song they ask for, On My Teeth, whatever, stuff in an envelope, throw it in the mail. But I can't do it, man. I can't do it. I care way too much. Like, every day I wake up, I got a laundry list of things to do. I got this music to turn in. I've been working with EDM people and pop people in my own band, and all this stuff that I got to do. And I'm like, I got to get a few of these done, and I could just scribble it real fast and throw it in the mail, and be done with it. But I cannot do it, man. I look at the piece of paper, I see the kid's name who paid for this, ordered this thing, and they write what song they want. And a lot of kids give me these letters of why they want this song, or what it means to them, or just these quick little things. And I just look at it and I just go, that could be the kid. That could be the one kid that needs this. That could be the kid that is standing on the ledge. That could be the kid battling addiction, or surviving cancer, or has just lost his parents, or his best friend, or it's about to happen, or whatever. And I'm so far behind on these because I get this piece of paper and I spend 2 hours on it. Mm-hmm. I draw, like, because in my lyric book, I draw these, I'm always drawing. Like, my mom's an artist, and that's how she made her living. And I'm not the best at it, but I've always had that thing. I'm decent at it. I sketch stuff all over, and, I'll be sitting on the tour bus, we'll be talking, and I'll be drawing on something. It's just kind of like just what I do with busy hands or whatever.
Sure.
But I make these things to where I'm like, this kid spent money on it. I want him to get it and think it's the coolest thing ever. I want to frame it. The same way I am with my music. I'm like, I want someone to hear this song and think it's the best heavy song they've ever, if it's going to be for Growth. I want them to feel like this is the best heavy song they've ever heard, and they can't hear anything else but this song, down to the stupidest thing to, like, I opened this online store for 2 months and had to shut it down because I had so many orders, and I can't catch up because each one takes me 2 hours, and I still do them. And I could do it so quick, man. I could get the rest done probably in the next week, but it's going to take me probably till December, Christmas time, to finish them all. Cause I'm going to go every day that I'm like, oh, I got something else to do. All right, let me do this real quick. And then I look at open my phone where I have all the orders, and I go, Chris so-and-so, or Jane this, or Rachel, or Bob, or whatever. And I just look at it and I go, no, this kid's that. I mean, it's that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
And I just have that in me. It's like, and I think the Underoath fans, if they're like me, I collect stuff. I buy the vinyl. I want that exclusive thing. And like, a kid that's going to order a handwritten lyric thing to frame is the me of the Underoath fans. Like, I would do that for like Radiohead or Nine Inch Nails or the Deftones, even, like, even bands that are like in my same tier of life or whatever. Like, there's things that I pay money for because I'm a fan, and I just look at those orders and I go, they're getting madder and madder every day that it takes longer, but it'll be worth it when they open the mail. You know, I'm just like, fuck, I can't just churn it out like and not care.
Yeah.
I have to make it cool. And like, I take pictures of every single one of them because they're all so cool. I'm proud of every one of them. And it's such a weird thing to be proud about, but like, I just come up with these cool ass drawings, and half the time is like me thinking about what am I going to draw for this? Because all of them are completely different. And I've had 1,000 something orders, and every single one of them is completely different from the other. And it's just like something to do. But I dug myself quite the hole though, to be honest with you, because so much other stuff going on. But I find it is a fun way for me to every day. I think I probably do at least one a day. To me, I'm like, I can't be on stage, but I'm still connecting to a fan at least once a day. It's kind of cool. Even they don't know that I'm doing it at that time, but I'm like, I'm working on so-and-so's thing today, and I'm going to work on hers tomorrow, and then his the next day. And like, so every day I'm still getting a little bit of taste of like, I'm doing something for a fan, for a me, you know, like a music lover that cares this much. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of been like a blessing in disguise for this weird time of not touring, you know, is like doing something like that. Super random thing that me and Aaron did for a little bit, but it's still giving me something every day to where I'm like, I know I'm creating something for an Under Oath fan that's not just music every day.
Yeah.
You know? So it's cool.
It's a weird, and that's beautiful, dude, because that kind of stuff is just it's such a great idea. The handwritten lyrics, like, it was something I saw fairly recently, like people doing, and it's a genius idea, but it's also, like you're saying, super special. And it could be that could have saved someone's life, you know, like, but the cool thing I'm thinking about as we're talking about this being this weird time is the fans are now experiencing what we experienced to be there for them, right? They're experiencing the longing and missing what they love, right? You're on tour, you're missing your girl, Aaron's missing his kids, Tim's missing his kids and wife, like so badly, so you can go out and be there for those people. Now that you guys are what they're missing and they're home with their families, right? It's just this weird change. Like now they know what it feels like, maybe a little bit to miss that, right? Like it's weird, like shift that now you're home with the family, not out there doing what you're doing, and they're missing you, right? But at the same time, I guess you're missing them as well. But they're starting to, but you've experienced both. They haven't, maybe. And so that's really interesting in my mind right now. That shift in not in power, but shift in status.
Yeah. I think that if people aren't scared when shows happen, and I hope that they won't be, but I have a feeling that we've all been there to where we've been like, well, I'll catch them next time. You know, it's been a long week. I'm tired. I'll catch them next time. Or you maybe even bought a ticket and you're just like, man, I'm just so worn out that they'll be back. I don't know if that's going to happen again. I think people are going to be like, I have to go.
Yeah.
And I have to go now. I have a feeling that's my hope that would be the positive from all of that, is that like, I don't know if any of us are going to take it for granted again. And like, I don't, and I've been saying this whole time, I don't take a show for granted. And I never treated it like a dickhead, but I think every little moment will be even more cherished than it already was. And I think the fans won't be saying I'll catch them next time as much as they did to whatever band. And I hope that the bands that maybe took it for more granted would be, maybe there is someone out there that would get fucked up before shows, or, they don't really remember the shows because they're drinking too much or whatever, maybe won't do that as much, because I don't think any of us saw it coming. I don't think that when I walked off stage, I could have to look back on my schedule to see what the last show was in Australia. I don't think that I thought that was going to be the last time I got in front of an audience for. We already had these different festivals booked, and then we got this huge tour with Slipknot. We had all this stuff in the works. We knew what the next year was going to look like, and that calendar year didn't get postponed. A lot of these bands got shit postponed. Like our shit just got wiped clean. Just like, nope, that's canceled. That festival's canceled. This festival's canceled. That festival's canceled. Also that festival and your whole tour is canceled. We're not rescheduling any of it. So we'll see it when the world opens back up. If you got a new record, if not, then maybe you got to wait another year to tour again, because no one wants to put you on when your record's old, and no one festival is going to put you on if you don't have a new song. And it's been really strange. And I have a feeling that or a hope that when things open back up, no one would take it for granted again. So I don't know, maybe that's wishful thinking, but I just don't think, I couldn't imagine someone being, I know I wouldn't, if, someone's coming anywhere close and I'm not busy, I'm driving. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Be it a friend and I'm going for free to see my friend's band play, whether I listen to them or not, which a lot of times you go see your homies play, whether you like their band or not, you're just homies, you played shows together or whatever. Or if it's one of your favorite bands and you don't know anyone, you got to pay full ticket price. I'm going,
yeah. Dude.
So
were you planning on going to Furnace Fest for Code 7?
You want to know something crazy?
I do.
I don't know. I guess we can say it now. We were going to be the headliner. We weren't announced for Furnace Fest. We weren't announced because we had a show with Slipknot in Birmingham, and we were going to be announced the second we got off stage. We were announcing that we were headlining Furnace Fest.
Because of the proximity contracts or proximity deals.
Yeah, anyone listening that doesn't know what that is, there's a thing called a radiance clause to where if you're playing within the same area, you can have two shows on sale that are competing. But since we weren't headlining the Birmingham show, it was Slipknot. We were allowed. We had worked out this thing that we could announce that we were headlining Furnace Fest after we played. We walked off stage in Birmingham. We were going to put it online. Obviously, none of that happened. But yeah, we were the headliner of, I think, Friday night, or I don't remember which night it was, but
that's fucking awesome. I was going to go to that, so I would have been there. Like that was fuck.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, there was a couple of my friends. It's crazy because like friends I met, like people in like pop bands that I know that like in LA and like stuff like that grew up listening to a lot of that shit. They were all gonna fly to that show. The people you wouldn't think that listen to that kind of shit like do. And I was like, and those are the only people that knew. Like I had my buddy. He sings in this pop band. It's super super rad. I've written some songs for them in the past. He texted me. He's like, dude, do you think I should fly to Furnace Fest? It's like, like I really want to see so. It's like, will you be there? And I was like, you can keep this a secret. I'll let you know that we're headlining. And he was like, fuck, booking a ticket right now, all this stuff. And then it didn't happen. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Dude, that's wild. That's wild. Let me ask you, I want to ask you an actual question that I've never asked anyone this exact question on this show, and I don't ask a lot of questions, but there's times, especially like with Under Oath, that I'm listening at the gym or I'm listening wherever, to where I almost feel like I'm on stage and I've like, this is the cheesiest question, but like the moment, like I have my moment that I would guess, and I'll tell you what it is, where it feels like the most badass ever. Like the biggest point of any song that you have when you play it live, that you feel more alive or more like this is the moment than ever, right? Like so like NoFX just did the Decline at Red Rocks, and Fat Mike's a buddy of mine. That's the last time I got offered cocaine was at Fat Mike's house, begging me to do cocaine. And I've got the best DMT in the world. Like, let's do it. We're in the pool in latex doing an interview, and he's like trying to feed us cocaine. Anyway, but you could see in his eyes the moment in the Decline where he was like almost smiling ear to ear, looking out on the crowd, hearing what's happening right now. It's all hitting at the same time perfectly, and how good he felt. Like you could see that moment when you look at his face. With you guys, is there a moment in a song consistently that you cannot wait to get to that point of the song and nail it and feel that ultimate power, like the ultimate, almost like an orgasm, just like, yes. Right. Is there that song?
Well, I think it's different when we're headlining, when we're not headlining. And I feel like we ended our record cycle supporting really big bands that a lot of the crowd did not know. And there's a moment in a breathing in a New Mentality, which is the first song off Lost in the Sound of Separation, where the breakdown hits, and it's not like a chuggy breakdown, but it's like a heavy sludgy moment. And it's one of those jumping moments where the whole crowd jumps and you know it's going to happen. And I feel like when it happened every night on the Breaking Benjamin tour, it happened every night on the Korn tour, in like all the radio festivals where we might not have fit into, where, you know, even someone who doesn't like you yet or knows who you are, they were going to jump because the whole crowd was going to jump because it had that beat in that perfect BPM moment. It's just a perfect disaster. And I feel like there's a moment in Breathing in a New Mentality where that would happen every night supporting. And the reason I say that is because it's been recent, because we ended the cycle supporting. But normally we're headlining. When we headline, it's a little bit different. But there's a lot of different moments. But that moment in particular, I know because we just finished the cycle like that. And it was like every night we know, like we even like strategically would put that song, like if we're playing to an Alice in Chains Korn crowd, most of these, our fans don't really want to pay the money. Like we know around song 3 or 4, we're going to grab them, and then they leave being a fan because we start with something big, they're shocked. We hit them with like a song that's more singy single, and they're like, wait, I maybe have heard this on the radio. And then we'd hit them with the third song with that breakdown. You get the whole crowd to jump when some of the people are standing with their arms crossed, and then all of a sudden you got them baited and the rest of the night is yours. And they leave probably going like, okay, I'm a fan, or they obviously didn't, or they hate you and they're only there to see Korn. But either way, we knew at that moment we put that song in a specific spot when we play for fans that maybe didn't know who we were yet, which is that it's wild to think that we've gone that far in our career where we had tours where we get to play for people that never heard of us before. Which is cool. Like I would ask, on some of those radio festivals that we started getting thrown on, I'd be like, how many of you guys have ever heard of us before? And a lot of times, at least half the crowd raised their hand, and you hook those people, and like it's a whole new audience, So there is that moment in that song when we knew, because the fans, the Underoath fans, it would start it, and then the rest of the place joins in. And it was just a sea of just jumping people having a great time, and you get someone to have a good time that doesn't know who you are, they're probably gonna check you out.
Yeah,
they might even hit the merch table after. So,
dude. That's amazing. That record has some fucking breakdowns on it. Is that so? And I'm horrible with song titles. Is that the I'm the dead man, you're the savior?
I'm the desperate. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's like wah, bum, ba-da-bum, bum, bum. Oh fuck! I have like almost gone off the road in my car to that song. I would put that on repeat. That breakdown is fucking insane. My part that I always think about, like, Spencer must feel like a fucking badass because it's on the live record, and I know you can pull it off live, and it's that high screaming at the end of Returning Empty-Handed at the end. Oh, where it's just and it's like, fuck, like I can't believe that is happening right now. Like, it's so brutal. And I just, in my mind, I was just like, that has got to be like that fucking moment that I would guess, but I like your choice as well, which of course is the right one.
Right. There's a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoy the set thoroughly. I would say almost every single night. Like there's some songs on Chasing Safety I do not enjoy playing because we were kids and it's a cheesy record in my opinion. And that's just my opinion.
Cringe sets in.
There's a lot of cringy moments on that record, but we were also like 18 when we wrote it. So we did the best we could at our age and at that time. But there are moments in songs like that where I'm like, damn, but I learned how to forget about myself in those moments and really, because when you're on stage, you kind of get lost in it, and you're really, but when we play some of the Chasing Safety stuff, I can step out because I'm like, I don't care about these songs. Like we're doing it for the fans. And then you really go, you actually kind of get snap out of it and you're awake for a minute and you look around and you go like, this is really making, like, these kids are loving this right now. Mm-hmm. And that's why you do some of those older songs, is because you're like, it's painful for me, but it's making this kid's night. Or, that's like a lot of most people, that's the first time they ever heard us. So there's something attached to that. The first record you heard of someone is something that's going to bring you back to your childhood or whatever. So we play those songs and you just kind of step out of your live mindset and just look at the crowd and go, this is what we're doing this for, like, for them. We're not playing this song for ourselves at all anymore, because we're doing it for you, So I've learned to enjoy those moments as well.
Yeah, dude, those records, they imprint on you. They imprint on you too. Like, you can tell where you were when you heard this record, right? Like, like the first time, like back to Code 7 again, the first time we saw Code 7, like those songs that I heard the first time seeing it live resonate with me in such a way that, Jeff Jenkins is just a gem of a human being. He sent me some of his quirky, circuit bending stuff in the mail after that episode that he made for me, like out of his weird electronics, like just an absolute sweetheart. I wanted to talk about, you spent some time in New York, but also now you're spending time away from the road in Asheville, and being Spencer, you've been Spencer from Under Oath for a long time. I know, different cities, things are different. But the anonymity of New York, this is something I talked about with Aaron from ISIS when he was on the show. Living in LA versus moving to Vashon, where he lives now, in like an island you have to take a ferry to in Washington. He always felt like he could, when he was living in a big city, he could hide things better. He could kind of drown out what was really going on kind of all the time, because there's so much going on around him. Did you feel that anonymity when you lived in New York, where you could kind of just go where you wanted to go and people wouldn't recognize you as much, and like you just kind of blended in with everybody, versus maybe in Florida or Asheville, like, holy shit, it's Spencer from Under Oath. Like in New York, it's just like, oh, there's a guy with blonde hair walking down the street. Like, did that hinder or did you like that feeling? Or was it something that felt weird to you? I loved
that about New York, is that you're moving to like the busiest place in America and you can completely disappear. Mm-hmm. That there's something special about that everyone's so busy, or everyone is maybe someone or doing something so important and they don't give a shit. And the best part about it is that you could spend a lot of time. I think that helped me step away from the drug use, is that I was always alone, even the friends you have in the city, everyone's, even as small mile wise, everything's so far apart because of traffic and subways and schedules. Like, you don't even really see anybody. You're just constantly alone and in headphones, which is the first time I fell back in love with music. Before writing Erase Me, I was just constantly listening to music and opening my mind and walking. And I was like learning to be like, I enjoyed the time in between the bars, because in the cold or whatever, like putting on the headphones to walk to the other place. Yeah. To where I'd go in and order one drink. Sometimes I'll even finish it just to go back outside to walk to another place to listen to music, through the snow, through whatever. I was like, it was great. And I feel like, yes, it's awesome to kind of disappear in that. And then you kind of learn how to be okay with yourself again, because even though there's people everywhere, you're kind of alone. And it's something that I think I needed to do, and it was important to do. And, the only bad part about it is no one can afford to buy a home there and really live there. So it was good. It was cool to do for a while.
Do you like being alone? Like, do you cherish that time that you can be alone, or does it bother you?
It doesn't bother me anymore. I think it did, because I was always around people because of touring and growing up with brothers, and then going from that to being on the road, there's always people around. You never went to eat alone. You never did anything alone. And like, someone's going to look at you if you're alone eating in a restaurant. Who's that weird guy eating by himself? But once I lived there and like learned that's just normal. I don't really care. I'll go to a bar alone. I'd go to a restaurant alone. I'd just go do shit alone, And I think that was good for me to do that because I hadn't done that maybe in my entire life. So it was good. And now like I would rather be with my lady or with my friends or family, but I can go do shit alone and it doesn't weird me out anymore when I think it probably used to.
Yeah. I think that comes with maturity and age too, understanding. You're terrified to be alone when you're young and you just want to experience everything and not space anything out and just suck it all in.
You don't eat by yourself. You're just like, dude, I got to find someone to go to lunch with. I want to, you like starve to death before you go somewhere.
Tim, let's go get burritos, please, dude. I can't go by myself.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like, I'm starving. Does anyone want to go eat? No, we already all ate. All right. Well, guess I'm going to go now.
Yeah. Guess I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Well, man, dude, Spencer, dude, we've been on for almost 2 hours, man. This is really crazy. Great.
Yeah.
Dude, I am so stoked to have you on the show, man. And that you were stoked to come on the show. And I wish we'd been able to do more together in music and tour, at least tour together or something to where, with Under Oath and you guys, I mean, of course it didn't happen, but I wish we did, but it's awesome to connect now and have a chat. Like it's I really cherish these chats, It means a lot.
It was funny that like, I guess Matt set us up with this, but I had just discovered your podcast not too long ago, maybe I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. I remember listening to the Jeff one, and I think that's how I discovered your podcast. Crazy enough, because they had Code 7's been a band that's been not doing anything for quite some time, and then they released vinyl and a T-shirt, and I ordered it. And then was like, I'm going to follow them on Instagram. And I don't follow a lot of people. I don't really use social media. I don't have like a big social media following or anything. It's not really my thing. Every time I try to use it, and I'm just like, I don't know. But like, I was like, I it's part of my childhood. I love that band. I ordered their merch, and then that podcast, and I just clicked on it and that's how I found your thing. And I also listened to the John one, Portugal the Man, and couple others, before Matt even set us up. And so and I didn't recognize the name when he was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And I was like, send it my way. And then I realized I put two and two together. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, dude, you're, I don't think you're with her. I don't know if you're with her anymore, but Monica, your publicist from before, that did your publicity for Race Me, is a good friend. And she hooked Tim and I together. And, she's actually the funny thing is the last show I saw before COVID was Tool, Fear Inoculum tour. Monica sent me some tickets, like right by the stage. And I took a buddy of mine. I was like, things are weird here. Like things are changing. The next day they canceled the whole tour and every tour started canceling. I was like, did we just see the last show of anything ever? And, but she's fantastic. And when, she hit me up about Tim, I was like, hey, what about Spencer too? And she's like, man, he's got a whole full schedule. I was like, okay. And I just let it go. And then Matt, I was like, dude, Spencer, can you connect us? And he's like, well, I'm actually hitting him up about some stuff. I'll bring it up. And if you don't hear back from me in 2 weeks, hit me up. And then he wrote me back like a week later and he's like, hey, what's your email? And I was like, okay. And then he sent it. I was like, oh, perfect.
We had just done it. He had hit me up a long time ago. We were supposed to do his podcast when Erase Me came out, and it never happened. And then he just sent me an email and goes, hey, do you want to finally make that happen? And I'm just like, I just come back from Florida. I just flew back from doing a bunch of writing and with the guys and stuff. And I was like, I like, you kind of get home and sit down and go, I'm kind of free for a minute. And then he said, I was like, oh, sick. Yeah, I'm free. And then we did a podcast and had a great time talking. And then he literally texted me that night or emailed me. It was like, would you be interested in doing this? I was like, yeah, send it my way. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, it means a
was
lot,
great.
dude, that you would do this, and I'm stoked you discovered the podcast. You should listen to the Chino episode. It's pretty interesting, just because it's
I would love.
so weird that it's even happening. But
I would love to listen to that. Because I'm a huge fan of everything he does. So
yeah, if you ever musically, I don't know if you guys know each other, but if you need any kind of connection that way, I can probably make that happen too. If it comes about where you need something that way or whatever, hit me up for that kind of stuff. I mean, I have no problem passing things along. I just love connecting people together because it's awesome to see what happens, you know?
So sick.
So, but dude, I'll let you get back to your evening but yeah, thank you so much. I mean, for all the music and the great chat. I hope you had a good time and
You had a great time. That was awesome.
Dude, rad. And I'll be in touch with when it comes out and all that behind the scenes jazz. But
I'll be able to share it and make sure our manager has it, puts it on the under oath stuff and all that.
Sweet. Right on, buddy. Well, yeah, take care and be safe and hit me up anytime for whatever, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Hopefully things open up in the next near future and we'll have a new record to talk about at some point in the future and we'll chat again. And you're in Portland and hopefully we'll be out there again. You know, we'll meet up and hang out.
Sure. Right
on,
the
show whenever there is one again. And, you know, I do love Portland. That's kind of why I'm, you know, in Asheville is considered like the Portland of the East. I don't know if you guys have heard that before.
I have, about Asheville and Austin, Texas is the Portland of the South.
Yeah, it's very similar. I love the Pacific Northwest. I think it's the most beautiful in America. Some of the most beautiful places. But with my family and, you know, it's in my band being based out of Florida, Portland is probably as far as it gets.
Yeah.
You know, I have friends, a lot of my friends moved from St. Pete to Seattle and I do love it. And I love Portland, but it's just too much before every tour and every practice, we'd be making that cross country flight. So I live in the Portland of the East. So it's fucking cool.
You're almost there.
We'll want to be
sister cities. Man.
Yeah. Anyway, man, good talk. Good chat.
Hey, you too, buddy. We'll talk soon. All right.
All right, man. Peace.
Right, later. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Spencer Chamberlain from Under Oath. What a dude. I hope you guys enjoyed that ride we went on. You know, I love when I get a chance to do a podcast that's, 2+ hours because it really feels like something got accomplished. Even when we're just talking about whatever, it feels like you documented a piece of history that's a legitimate chunk of time with a legitimate chunk of person, if you will. And I love that. I love going back through the catalog and seeing episodes that are 2 and 3 hours long. And I know maybe some of you don't appreciate that because it's a long commitment. Maybe you have a 15-minute commute every day and it takes you a week to get through it. But hey, here's your episode for the week. You got through it. You're this far, unless you skip forward. And in that case, that's fine. You just missed a whole bunch of stuff. Anyways, thank you for coming back week after week, guys. You guys are fantastic. I love each and every one of you very much. And the fact that you spend your time with me is paramount. It's still something that boggles my mind as this show grows and becomes a viable piece of art, a viable contribution to the society, and just an awesome audio journal through 175 episodes now. If every episode is an hour and a half on average, that's a shitload of hours of content. So I know there's some of you out there that have listened to every episode, and I am shocked and humbled, and I love that you've done that. But Jesus Christ, that's a lot of time. So hopefully hopefully you guys are familiar with what I'm doing by now. So I know a lot of people have taken notice and are starting to email and review the show in a way that lets me know they understand what we're doing here and what we've grown into. Wasn't the initial vision, but I really like where it's going, and we're going to let it keep going that way. So if you guys are in for the long haul, I appreciate it. If this is the only episode you listen to, thanks for stopping by and giving us a chance, and hopefully we get you back again. All right, guys. I got a shitload of stuff to do. We got more episodes to do. got family to raise, work to do, as you guys do as well. So if you're out mowing your lawn or screen printing or doing whatever, keep it up, work hard, take care of each other, and as always, we'll see you on the radio.